listeners, welcome to another episode of the Snowy's Camping Show. If you haven't joined us before, or if you have and you haven't yet done so, make sure you subscribe via our YouTube channel or your favourite podcast app, and you can join in on the conversation with Lauren and I on the Snowy's Camping Show Facebook group. Ask to join and jump in on the conversation. As I mentioned, you're joined by myself, Ben, and my colleague here, Lauren, and today we're talking about camp kitchen essentials. So the basis of what you need to make setting up for your next camping trip nice and easy, right? Now,
Yeah.
I've got a fairly basic setup with a kit I can take in and out the car, but you're kind of stuck in between at the moment, aren't you, with a new setup?
Yeah. I think when you're saying to make your camping trip nice and easy, I think when people are going away camping, especially if they're just making a decision to just go away for the long weekend, they might only be going for 2 days or things like that. You don't really want your preparation to be huge. And for me, the camp kitchen and food side of it is one of the biggest things because it's quite easy to just chuck your clothes in a bag and things like that. So if essentially that's the only thing you need to do like a food shop and pack your clothes, but everything else is sort of already ready, then it makes getting away a lot easier and a lot sort of more stress-free.
Yeah.
And so we've already talked about like, you know, I think we did an episode on camping on a budget and sort of keeping food cool and things like that. So we've touched on the food side of things before in the podcast, but we haven't necessarily talked about the actual camp kitchen.
Well, you need to cook the food, right?
Yeah, well, you need to cook the food, prepare all of that sort of stuff. And I'm between at the moment because, as I've mentioned before, we've recently bought a big Mercedes Sprinter van that we're converting to a camper van for our family. And so what the system that we were using before, it's still practical, I guess, or not practical. It's still applicable. It still sort of it makes it easy to use, but it's not ideal for the new van setup. So at the moment, we're going through that process of really assessing the functionality of our kitchen in our new camping setup and a new camping space and what we actually want out of the kitchen and how we want it to look and things like that, which I think is sort of the first step when you're planning your kitchen sort of setup.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I've got to agree with you on the packing of the kitchen stuff. If I had to pack all the stuff that's in my kitchen kit every trip, I'd forget something every time.
Yeah.
And the food is probably the thing I like the least because there's so many little things to remember. You can't just kind of, well, unless you want to eat really simply, you've got to think a little bit about the ingredients you need, and often you might forget the oil or some spices or something just to make it that meal that you're used to. So if you can have just your camp kitchen set up, what we're talking about today, grab a tub, stick it in the car, that's how I operate.
Yeah.
Then you have to think about it. And then at the end of the trip, go through it, restock it, refill, put it back in your garage, and it's good to go for the next one.
Totally.
So, yeah.
And I also think that I find that having to cook and prep food in a completely different way to what I do every day just because I'm going camping makes it more difficult as well. So for me, it's just easy to transport the same things that I do every single day and just do exactly the same thing when I'm camping, but sort of get smart about it. So the things that I use every single day, like salt and pepper and chopping board and knives and just, you know, all those everyday things at home, just have a second thing and that goes in your kitchen kit. So things like that. But how exactly do you have, like, what do you do with your setup?
Okay, so I guess there's a few different ways about this. Ideally, well, I guess in a world where you've got a really sort of elaborate setup, say a camper trailer or a kit on the back of, say, a cab chassis kind of ute, you've got drawers and things where you can keep it all in there, right? You can pull your kitchen out, fold it out, your stove and everything's all there and it's all set to go. That type of setup, you're locked into having that all the time, or you've got a camper trailer in your driveway all the time, but it does make it easy when you get to camp. That's not how I camp, and I don't like the idea of locking my vehicle in just for that purpose, not at this stage of life anyway. So I use tubs that I take in and out of the car, like everything apart from a shelf in the back. I have a Nissan Patrol. Apart from a shelf in the back of my Nissan Patrol, everything can come out. Even the shelf can, but it'd be a pain in the bum to try and take it out now. So I've found tubs, all the same type of tubs. They come in two different sizes just from a hardware shop. Yeah. And they stack inside each other, or not inside, but they nest. Yep. So they sit sturdily inside the back of the car. And I just stack them in. So I have 2 stacks of those. One of them, or actually there's probably 3 of them that are always packed with gear. One of them's a heap of vehicle spares. Another one's just got some basics like insect repellent, fly nets, some water purification stuff and those sort of things that little things that you might need, but you always forget if you don't just have it ready to go. And the last one that's always packed is my kitchen kit, which I've got some of in front of us here. And that's got knives, bowls.
You just said
spoons.
knives.
Hey?
You just said knives.
Knives.
Knives. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Wow. Picky today.
I know. It just sounded really funny. I'm not. Yeah, I know.
Knives with a V.
Knives with a V. Yeah, knives. Sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted you then. I just thought it was super cute.
I'll forgive you. So I use plastic like these bowls that you can sell, bowls and plates and knives. Are all plastic, so not heavy stuff, but durable stuff. It's easy to clean and bounces around in the back of the car.
How do you find eating with those? Because I'm one of those people who, I hate flying on airplanes and eating foods with stupid airplane cutlery and plastic. I don't know. I just really feel like I read a study once that talked about apparently the kind of cutlery you use when you eat has a huge impact on whether or not you actually enjoy the food that you're eating, and someone can eat identical meals with different cutlery and have a totally different taste and enjoyment perspective. Really? It was really interesting. And I don't know, plastic cutlery, how do you,
Well, maybe that's right it. If I was at home, it'd probably be different, but when I'm camping, I'm in a totally different environment. It doesn't bother me. But I take a knife, fork and a spoon with me when I'm camping, but when I'm hiking, I'm like, I don't need all three. I've got a pocket knife.
Yeah, right.
I usually just take a spork. So to me, this is a step up from that anyway. Okay. So doesn't bother me. Yeah. But maybe my wife and kids have got a different story. I don't know, but let's not ask them because then I'll be taking heavier stuff with me. But look, this is fine. We get by fine with it. The kids are fine with it. They can't break it. They can drop it. It washes up just fine. And then I've got, there's a little thing of oil that gets topped up every trip, just some basic spices like mixed herbs or just some oregano or something. Some curry powder is always a good one because
curry powder is great.
Curry powder and you can turn anything into some sort of a stew or something like that. Curry powder. My wife went and bought a heap of mini stuff, like there's a little mini grater here that, it's a bit of a pain in the bum.
Really mini.
a big block of cheese, but it saves taking a large grater with you. You can take a flat one, I suppose, and just some compact knives. Good, this little knife here. We've got two like that in the kit. They're sharp knives, so a good sharp knife's good to have. And that's just the basics of the utensils and things. All the cups, tongs, etc., everything I need to cook with. But then I'll have my stove and I take a griddle rather than a fry pan. I take a griddle. Yeah. And I take billies with me as well. So I think that's pretty much all for my camp setup. And then if you want to go down the path, like a collapsible tub to wash up in. So kind of gets packed in different spots in the car. But the kitchen kit that's in the tub, along with all those bits that I need, are all in the same spot in my garage. So if I chuck it in, I know all I need is that food to cook with, and I can cook anything.
Yeah. I think our setup is sort of at the moment, it's really similar to yours in that we used to, the way that our sort of older van used to work, we had similar like a false floor / shelf with space underneath that we slid tubs into. Pretty much exactly the same as what you're talking about. We obviously have a little bit more like, your little thing of oil. I would use all of that in half a day or like one dinner cooking session. So we've got like a much larger jar of oil, but same thing, big salt and pepper things and whatever. And it all just stays there, even down to, your tea towels and your dishwashing sponges and all of those sort of things. It's all just goes in there. And I tend to keep like the dishwashing stuff in like a larger Ziploc bag or dry bag or something like that in the kitchen kit, so it's separate and so you can just pull it out really easily and have it at your washing station. Yep. But yeah, with the van now, because we have a bit more space and it's a much larger vehicle, and sometimes it's just me and my partner that go away, but sometimes it's all six of us. Like I was saying to you before, I don't really necessarily want to, if we're just going away for the weekend and we might arrive somewhere quite late on a Friday night and have already got dinner on the way or something, it's only really a day and a half that we have cooking for. Don't necessarily want to have to unpack all the tubs and set up a table and set up a full cooking space. So thinking a little bit about instead having a pull-out kitchen and how that would work in the system. So we're really at the planning stage at the moment, but then obviously having a pull-out kitchen makes it even more easier because you're reducing the amount of tubs that you have and you've got all the drawers and the bits and pieces and it's all just in there ready to go, which would be quite convenient. But then there are also other factors like, you know, the weight of the vehicle and how heavy it is and how much space that might cut out and if it's going to be. So, yeah, we're just sort of going through all of that at the moment.
I guess for those who are starting out, a tub in the base is what I talk about. That's kind of how I'm going to keep going. I'm not
of course.
I'm not sort of upgrading from that, I suppose. But if you have, like in your case, you've got a purchased van for those reasons. And if you can build in a kitchen, then makes those quick stop-offs
because
easier.
our van, we don't really have the intention for it to be a daily driver. It's literally just the family camper van. Possibly we might take it for, you know, big long day trips or something like that every now and then. But if I think about it, in the last 2 months, I've been away at least 5 weekends. So we're using it a lot and that's a lot of time to have to pack and unpack and things like that. So in that
instance, it makes sense to build something in.
That's right, yeah. And I think if you have, as you mentioned before, like camper trailers or a setup in the back of the cab and things like that, you might have a permanent kitchen system built in. So it's just depending on what sort of camping you do, how often you're getting away, how many people you have to cater for, you know, the styles of trips you're taking more frequently, all that sort of stuff.
So what about cooking pots and things? For me, with my lightweight kind of approach, like I mentioned before, I take a griddle. It's just a lightweight aluminium griddle, which I love. It's non-stick and it's just lasted for years and years and years. And I cook everything from barbecues to eggs to pancakes on it, and it just goes over a 2-burner stove. Does the job just fine. And I don't then take a fry pan. Sometimes you think, oh, we handy to have a fry pan, but I would only use it occasionally, whereas I can use the griddle for everything. So my cooking kit
is a good point, actually.
Yeah, and I don't like the handles, like the saucepans and fry pans. It's kind of an awkward shape to pack, right? Whereas a griddle is flat and it just slots in somewhere nice and easily. And I suppose
also the griddle covers the entire stovetop, whereas a fry pan doesn't. And so, because I had thought about it a few times, obviously I do a lot of campfire cooking, but if we're in, you know, fire ban season and I still want to do a barbecue style thing, trying to have a fry pan or 2 fry pans on and then, like you say, managing the handle and all that sort of stuff, it's a little bit not necessarily efficient of cooking time and space. So, stovetop griddle plate is a good idea.
So, that's what I use. And then I take 2 billies with me rather than fry pans because I've got a little billy that fits inside the big billy, so it all packs inside one billy. And they've got these little inserts that go on there, those stainless steel ones, and they've got a little insert that goes in the top as well. And I can kind of use that as a little fry pan or something just to keep things warm if I want. And the thing I like about the billy is it goes from stovetop to campfire. I can chuck a whole billy in the campfire to boil water if I don't want to use up the gas, whereas some saucepans you probably can, but I've got like a cast iron saucepan at home. I never take it because it's heavy. It's also got a wooden handle on it and I want to be careful of that in the fire.
It's not too big either, is it, that cast iron saucepan? Like it's only it's 2 litres or something, isn't it?
Roughly like that. It's not real big. It's got a lid on it. I think I put a handle on it to use it like a camp oven if I want, but I rarely ever use it. And I've got a cast iron saucepan as well, which I do like cooking on cast iron, but it's heavy and awkward to pack and I don't use it often enough to think I'll take it each time. So
are you saying you don't actually technically have saucepans, you just have your griddle plate and your billy? So what if you wanted to, say, cook pasta sauce? You just do that in your billy?
Yes, but there are some limitations on that.
Yeah, and so I'm assuming, because I've always found or thought billies were quite sort of thin in terms of temperature regulating and things like that. How do you find cooking in something like that over a saucepan?
Saucepan's better.
Yeah.
The billy being thin, like you say, quite often you find yourself scrubbing a burnt bit off the bottom because the heat goes through really quickly, or you need to stay there and stir it all the time. You've also got, it's quite tall, so it can be hard to mix easily. So there are some limitations in that respect, and I have considered a few times that maybe a saucepan, I'd use it enough to warrant trying to pack it somewhere and maybe take one less billy, but then I go back to that whole thing. If I've got a campfire, I can throw the whole billy in the campfire and then I can put it on the stove as well, whereas I couldn't do that with a saucepan necessarily.
Yeah.
So,
because saucepans are the next thing on my list to sort of work out a more long-term permanent solution. And at the moment, we don't have designated. I mean, obviously we've got our fire cast iron cooking stuff, which we'll talk about in another episode. But we just use a couple of saucepans from home. The saucepans are the only things I don't pre-pack.
Okay.
And so if I want, I can just pop them over the fire on like a grill plate or something like that, or use them in the stove. But they are a bit heavier and they are a bit chunkier. But then again, when there's 6 of us and I am cooking spag bowl, because, you know, that's often really nice and easy, I've got to boil at least sort of 4 or 5 litres of water to put enough pasta in. Yep. And it's like I just haven't really found a lightweight, compact camping solution. I'd love to be able to find really good functional size saucepans that nest properly, that don't necessarily have handles or things like that. But I haven't quite come across it yet.
I think I'm in the same boat because the other limitations with billies is you cook pasta in it and it becomes full, and then straining that becomes an issue. And I always do it, but you've kind of got, because you've got a hot handle on the top and it's hot in the bottom, so you end up with either gloves or the gloves I packed in the car now, but I often forget it. So it'd be kind of a balancing act with 2 tea towels so I didn't burn my hands to try and sort of strain this billy, or trying to hold the lid on top with one finger while I hold the handle and lift the bottom up. And because I don't take a colander, because then there's only one use for the colander. But so there are limitations with the billies. And I think I'm probably in the same boat as you there, that it would be good if there was almost like a half height billy would be good, so that it's lower and maybe wider. I do have actually a stainless steel hiking kit that sometimes I take that's just a larger sort of pot, so that could go in the fire. So yeah, I'm in limbo there. I'm not an ideal setup at the moment.
That's true.
Yeah.
And we touched before on things like utensils and things like that. I just have you know, your wooden spoon and a spatula and things like that. I do have a more campfire specific spatula that's with my campfire cooking stuff, but otherwise I just have a generic one because my actual kitchen kit is different to my campfire cooking kit, because I don't want to have to go through it and separate it and take out the unnecessary stuff if I'm camping in fire band season, because you know, at least I have that one system and that one setup, and then I have the second one, and if it's non-fire band season, I'll just chuck that in as well, because I don't have salt and pepper, I don't have all the daily use stuff with the campfire thing. It's literally just all the stuff for cooking on a campfire with the tools I need to clean it and flip and whatever. So it's not that hard to just grab an extra thing. So and then we've recently got some cool things at Snowy's, like the French Opinel knives.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
Yeah, because I have been thinking about that, because again at the moment I just have a big sort of heavy kitchen knife, and I'm thinking, and you've got a knife too. I mean, it's not big and heavy,
right?
but
But the Opinel one folds, so you can actually get a bigger knife for less pack length.
Bigger knife, less pack length. It's really heavy duty. So I've been looking at those going, that'd be cool. Just a couple of those in your setup, as it folds nice. And I think like maybe the longest one maybe is 15 centimeters or something, and it's like this huge big knife. So that's pretty nifty because it's space saving as well. And then the other thing we were going to talk about was enamel tableware, because I don't know about you, but I know my Nana and Pa in their camp setup have still got the same enamel cups and plates that I was using when I was like 6 camping with them.
They last forever, don't they?
They last forever.
I've got an old enamel cup that I took when we did a Kokoda trail in Papua New Guinea, and it went across the track with me, and rats chewed around the edge. So it's got all these rats chewing marks around the edge. I've washed it and everything, but it's still there. And I keep looking at thinking, I don't use it because I've got these lightweight ones that are in my kit, and they nest together because there's 4 of us now.
Yeah.
But it's still perfectly usable. Yeah. And if you get good quality enamel, it just lasts and lasts. So,
I've got heaps of enamel stuff in my set. I have found that having kids though, they tend not to want to use it because it can be quite hot. Like for dinners, the plates can get quite hot. And if you're having a hot Milo or something like that at nighttime, it's hard for them to hold the mugs without sort of it burning. So that would be the only downside for them, is heat transfer, but they do last forever.
Same with stainless steel. Stainless steel is versatile in that you can cook on it too. You could put that just the plate on the stove if you like, but it can be hot. We use these are nylon. Yeah. And the cup on the other side, there actually comes a little like a cozy that goes around it, but they insulate enough anyway. So I find the kids handle those just fine. So,
and I guess if they're if weight is a consideration, doing the nylon or the sort of plastic based, melamine based cookware and dinnerware and stuff like that is nice and light.
Yeah, melamine can get a bit heavier. I think.
I'm not really sure.
I've not used it. Melamine's a bit more like almost like your place you have at home.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay.
I think.
Yeah, I thought they were a bit lighter. I mean, they'd be lighter than steel and enamel sets, wouldn't they?
I don't know. Not really compared side by side.
I'm going to find that out actually.
Yeah, some stainless is going to be pretty thin, which would be pretty light, but you could probably afford slightly heavier stainless or thicker duty stainless steel for a camp kit. Refillable bottles is one that we've got here too, and leak-proof ones are good. So just be mindful. Like this oil I've got here, these are little
Nalgene,
mention a brand here, but Nalgene do those they're polypro bottles, and Nalgene have got a big claim about being leak-proof with the way their seal works on top. So I have although the producer got this out of my kit before and said, don't put that there, it's leaking. But obviously I just didn't do the lid up tight enough. She's laughing now. But so these are little Nalgene bottles, right? And they're really handy. And I've got there's one for salt, one for pepper. I seem to you talk about big containers that you've got, but I've got lots of little ones, and that's just me being me, taking compact stuff. But there's a heap of those in the kit that have just got little things in it, and they are pretty good with being leak proof, even to the point of putting dishwash liquid or something in them as well if you like. So make sure they're leak proof. Otherwise you can't.
There's nothing worse with arriving somewhere and there's just like sauce through everything. Or
you just don't want to be cleaning that up.
You absolutely don't want to be doing that. But so
clean up.
Yeah, mentioned before about your dishes set up and things like that. I have recently been using for the most part a large plastic tub with handles in it, which has doubled with filling everything up and chucking things in it, and then you can unpack it all and your kitchen sink's there. But recently I've upgraded to a collapsible kitchen sink, and it literally packs up to, I don't know, a tea, like a cake plate or a side plate size, and not much thicker. It's the soft fabric one. It actually works really well. Like at first I thought, I don't know how this is going to work, but just sits on the table. It fills up with water when you're not using it, because the thing I found with the kitchen tub is when you're not using it, it still takes up heaps of space and it just sort of sits there and whatever. Whereas you can pack the kitchen sink away, or if it's not being used, it just folds quite flat. It's really nice and light.
I have to look at that because I use a collapsible silicone
tub,
which is, so that packs down to, I don't know, like 40 centimetres by 25 or whatever, but it's still 5 to 10 centimetres in height. So you still kind of got to put it somewhere. But the sink you're talking about, I think, is it Cedar Summit kitchen sink, they do pack up. Like
just in a little zip thing.
Yeah.
It's like fabric. The whole thing is just fabric, but it's like a huge big bowl shape, but the sides sort of taper back in on itself, and the top circle is rigid, so the top of it stays. But when you fill it up with water, it's sort of, I guess, like there's a brand, I can't think what they're called, but they're like at Clark Rubber or something like that people can get for the backyard pools, and they don't have a frame or anything, but the top's blown up, but the rest it's essentially a miniature version of that.
And they sit up right enough. Like I find when I've boiled the water, I put it in the sink, and then as we eat, we just chuck the dishes in there and then wash it up, and that works okay in that respect.
Totally.
It doesn't just collapse down.
I mean, the only thing that it doesn't necessarily have or isn't as good for is sometimes with the tub, I just walk around and get people to chuck their stuff in the tub even without water in it, and then it's just sat off to the side and it's all sort of contained. But it's also just a matter of, that's the plus of it, but the sink still works really good, and I like that it's lighter and it's compact, so we just change the way that we do things a little bit for the benefit of the sink. So
I might make a change there as well. And so you don't have a dedicated wash station, it just goes on a table or something?
Just goes on the end of the table. So we do actually have like a large kitchen, I think it's an Austrail brand. It's like a deluxe kitchen thing, which is a big pantry and a aluminium tabletop where you have your stove on it and things like that. And then you can have your kitchen sink on the other side. The only time that I would ever use that is if we're going away for a week or something and I want to have a proper pantry or thing set up. If we're just going away for a couple of days over the weekend, I'm happy to just work out of my tubs, and then we just have quite a large table which we set up in the same sort of way, and the tubs just sit under the table and the fridge goes under the table. It's just nice and easy.
Okay.
So we have the wash station on one end and then the stove will go on the other, and also the way that I sort of set it up, which makes it, I think, a bit easier, especially to not have to take the kitchen everywhere, is and I think I've talked about it before, we don't have like a gazebo or anything like that. We have like quite a large shelter that we've made out of a huge big truck canvas with a wooden frame. And so it's like a elongated wooden A-frame in it. And so on one end of the A-frame, the table goes up against that. And then I've got a pole that goes across the A-frame, so it's like a capital letter A, but I've got hooks and things that go on that.
Oh, yeah.
So above there, I thread my paper towel on it, so I've got my paper towel dispenser ready to go, and I've got my hooks and my spatula and wooden spoon and things sort of hang on those hooks, and the pots and the pans hang there as well.
wow.
So it's like just makes it super easy. So there's not heaps of stuff that's on my table. And where was I going with this? What were we talking about?
I asked if you had your sink, if you have like a wash station separate.
Oh, wash station.
I think you were going where I want to go with this, because I'll explain how my kitchen's set up shortly. But it sounds like yours is quite elaborate. So you've got, if you set everything up, you've got the Austrail kitchen with your stove and the sink on that and some bench space, and then you've got other things.
So if we're just going away for the weekend, I just use the table. But if we're going away for a longer time, I have the table and I have the kitchen and the pantry set up. But it all sort of revolves around this A-frame thing, which sort of I set up as a bush kitchen. So I've got all stuff sort of hanging there and the paper towel and bits and pieces like that. But I can't think where I was going with this specifically, but no, we don't have like a dedicated wash station set up. We just do more of like a bush kitchen, if that makes sense. So it's all there.
Right. Mine's so much simpler than that.
Yeah. I mean, I know it does sound complicated, but it probably takes 20 minutes to set up.
Right.
And it's done.
Okay.
But again, that's, I have a lot more people to sort of cook for, and it just makes it a bit more practical.
Well, I'll explain mine, which is going to take a portion of the time.
Okay.
So it's four of us, so myself, my wife and two kids, but I just have a table, and at the moment it's bench seats, but we want to get those awesome collapsible stools that I know you love to go with it instead.
Yeah. Those stools are so ugly.
So it's a table for four. And then I've got one of those just fold out wire stove stands, really basic but durable stove stands. And I like that because you can kind of just shove it in any ground and it sits sturdy. My stove sits on that. And then I've got one of those like they've got a cross leg. Just a small side table or like a personal table, I think they call it. And that just goes next to my stove. Quite often I'll just put my water bladder or something on that, and then there's a little bit of sort of surface there to put stuff while I'm cooking.
Yeah, right.
And then my my wash-up kit is just a tub, which often sits on the bottom shelf of the stove, and I can just chuck the dishes and stuff in there as I go, and then when I want to wash, I'll take it away from the campsite, wash up, and then bring back the dishes for drying. That's pretty much it. I don't have – everything else is just in the tub. So the tub sits either on the table or just on the ground next to the stove or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't leave it there though because it's got eating utensils and stuff in there. I'll put it back in the back of the car for overnight, or if I'm out for the day, I don't leave it out. So I don't have any sort of things hanging up everywhere, but maybe I should stop being so strict on everything and relax a little bit. I guess
that's just what works for you. And I think often as well, if you're, like we're going away this weekend and there's going to be us and one of my friends is coming with her kids as well. And so where we're going is just out bush. So the kids will just be riding their bike around doing some exploring, but it's very camp focused. We're not doing day trips. We're not doing anything like that. So I think having a more permanent setup, like at home, our kitchen is like a revolving door train station. Do you know what I mean? People in and out all the time. So having something set up like that really works for us. And to make sure that it's functional, even if it might take a little bit more time at the very beginning of the trip, means I don't have to think about it and I don't have to get things out all the time. It's just it's all there ready to go.
What about actual pantry items? Because I mentioned before I've got one of those tubs I talked about, or two or three of those tubs become my pantry items and I'll kind of separate them. There'll be heavy stuff or canned stuff in one, and then bread and stuff in another, maybe fruit and veg in another. So there's three different tubs that I use. But you can get kitchens, not kitchens, like a cupboard, like a camp cupboard where you can zip up and it becomes reasonably protected from animals and insects and things. I don't take one of those because I feel like it's it's a bulky thing to carry, but
it is a bulky thing.
But do you?
As I said, I've got one that has the pantry underneath.
Within the kitchen.
Yeah, and I find it handy for the longer trips. But if I'm taking like the trips that I've been on recently, because they've all just been short weekend trips, haven't bothered to take them. I've just worked out of the tub. But if we are going away for, up to a week or something like, or even longer, but usually sort of up to a week, it's really handy to not have to faff around in a tub and things like that. And then often what we'll do is we'll have the garbage bags or our rubbish recycling thing. And if I unpack the pantry food tub and put it all in the actual pantry for function, then that tub doubles as our recycling / garbage thing.
Okay.
And I double up that tub so I know it's got a lid, it's sealed, and all the stuff that came out is just going back in there as recycling or rubbish, and it sort of makes it quite easy. So in that respect, having a pantry is good. And then I don't have to worry about taking a whole nother system to work out with rubbish. But if I'm just going away for a real quick trip, I might take like a Cedar Summit trash sack or something like that with the recycling that will go into another tub but not have to, you know what I mean? So I think it just depends on the type of trip we're doing.
So it comes down to what you're prepared to pack and unpack at the end of the day and length of the trip, I think. Because, I can see how a kitchen or a cupboard would be handy. But if you're packing, unpacking for a trip, then you got to think, am I prepared to pack and unpack that however often you're going to do it? Or do I do without that unpacking and just make do with keeping it in a tub or something like that? So there are a few other sort of options to what we talked about now. And I know 23 have recently brought out some pretty cool products, which is like a kitchen sling. I think they call it a kitchen sling.
I think they do, yeah.
And you can pack everything in there and it just unrolls.
Yeah,
and you
it's
can
like
put
a
it in
suspended,
it's
got like zip storage pockets and webbing pockets and places for you to put your cups and cutlery, but it hangs up either on like the back door of your vehicle or the side of your vehicle or from trees or at the end of a gazebo or something like that. So that's a really nifty option. I think it's a great option.
I reckon the key takeaway from this is the one thing you do or should have is a kitchen kit with all your absolute essentials packed in it. That's the one thing everyone needs, regardless of what camp kit you've got. You need your kitchen kit with the essentials in it and that you can just chuck in the car, restock it at the end of the trip, put it straight in the car when you go, it's ready to go.
Make sure it's doubles so you don't have to be taking things in and out of your kitchen every trip.
Things that are in there good to go. Not or at the very least a list of things that you need to take from your kitchen. But spoons and wooden spoons and stuff, you don't need really good quality stuff for camping.
Even things like tea bags. Like even just a dedicated thing of tea bags.
Hot chocolate, cocoa.
So the way that I manage that, and like I think it's my folks have a printout, an actual physical like laminated or contacted printout that's on their drawer in their camper trailer. So when they're sort of checking, they've got that immediate list there. We have like a check off list on our phone in like the cloud. So my partner and I can both look at it. And so when we're camping, we're both ticking this list on our phone. And it's just every time we go, we wash everything, chuck everything, put it back in. But then before we go, it's just a super quick, easy tick, tick, tick. Oh, yep, that's in the box. Tick, tick, tick. So we never forget anything.
It makes packing so much easier. You just got a little bit of extra setup to start with to get those things in place. But if you just do it and spend that little bit of extra time at the end of the trip to restock, it makes getting ready for the next trip so much easier.
It really does.
And probably the other part of it is all the other bits is very personal, really. But before you go out and buy everything that everyone says you need, like a kitchen and all that, just have a think about how it fits in your car, how you're going to set up your campsite, what stove you got, where you're going to put it, what are you going to wash up in. Just have a think about the whole thing and maybe start with the basics. If you've got a table and a stove, maybe just stick with a table and a stove until you go, actually, I do need an extra table.
Having a small little notepad in with your kitchen kit as well, because, and again, we've moved from a notepad onto this list in our phone, but every time we're away and we think, damn, I should have bought that, or we really need that, just chuck it on the list because then when you go home between your next trip, you can add it to your kit and cross it off. And then that's when you're starting out, don't worry about getting everything. Just keep a list of the things that you think you need and then just add it over time and then you'll be sweet.
Starting out, you will forget something.
Yeah, you will.
One thing
100%.
We didn't mention is paper towel. I don't take paper towel. I just use my
I think I mentioned it in my thing because I use paper towel because I find it really handy.
Yeah, okay.
Because then I don't have to worry about taking millions of tea towels and sort of washing them and drying them and things like that. Right. I still use tea towels, but paper towels are just amazing. And then if you've got a fire, you can use them for fire lighters or just chuck them in fire.
Because tea towels, if you're winter camping, just never dry.
Yeah, they're just the pits.
But you know what? I'm sure there is a load of different opinions out
Totally.
there, a lot of different ideas
Such
with a camp
personal
kitchen
thing.
setup, little things, like homemade hacks, things from hardware shops. There's so many different ways to do it. As you mentioned, if you're just starting out, you're not going to do it straight away. But please let us know on the Snowies Facebook group if you've got ideas, tips, feedback on setting up your...
post photos of your kitchen as well. I'd
awesome.
really love to
Definitely
see
photos.
yeah.
And as I mentioned before, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or on your favourite podcast app. And we'll catch you next time.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
See ya.